Hey guys, it is Dan and Joe. It is Dan's big movie for the month.
It is.
And this has special significance.
It's my fault again.
Because, why is it your fault?
The 3-movie bit.
Oh, there's 3 movies, right. Well, first of all, I was going to say there's special significance because we're about to do the Hannibal TV show.
Yes.
But we are once again reviewing 3 movies for Dan's big movie. Usually it's the anniversary and then one
related movie.
But you didn't care for the one that we picked, which turns out is also the anniversary of.
I was okay with that one, but I wanted you to watch the other one because I thought it would match better thematically with the show, and
I think it did.
And I thought you might prefer it, but I like the fact that Hannibal was an anniversary too.
Yes, as it turns out, both of these movies. So the original idea was Silence of the Lambs' 30th anniversary is February of 1991. Mm-hmm. So this is the 30th anniversary. And then, I'm sure they did this on purpose, February of 2001, 10 years later, they put out Hannibal.
That's pretty cool.
So it's now the 20th anniversary of that.
Also a little side thing I want to point out, because I'm guessing, this is also in line too, because maybe also with the fact that Clarice has come out recently, you plugged that.
Yes, that's right. I just did a review on the new CBS show, Clarice.
And I'll tell you something funny. When I was going through this,
this is Silence of the Lambs, like
period right now. Yeah. This time of year, it seems like. And when I was going through, I did see, like, for instance, on Amazon, they have all the Hannibal movies, and guess what? None of them free. You got to buy them.
That's right.
They want you to buy them. So they knew.
They knew. I already had this one, of course. I have actually 2 copies.
I hope you. Oh yeah.
And then because this is the special collector's edition, it's got 2 discs. I should have looked at the features. I didn't.
And you know what though? Let me tell you.
I bet they're good.
I also want to say for that. Not to go too off the beaten path here, but I've never said this before. I think Silence of the Lambs is one of my favorite movie covers.
It's a very cool cover.
I love it.
Very, very cool cover. But then this one I bought used here because we were doing it. They did not have Red Dragon though, so we that was
the struggle. Really.
Yeah, we struggled to see that one, but we did the rental on that and got it. So we watched that. So it is all 3 that we're going to talk about. Just like last month. Next month, we have
just
set.
2.
There's just 2.
Just 2.
Which we'll get into later. But let's talk about all of these movies. So,
okay.
I suppose, since this was more of a planned triple than last month, let's just do them in the order we normally do, which is the main movie, then we'll tackle the secondary movie, which I guess because it's Hannibal's
at least should talk
anniversary,
about
we'll do that, and it was the second one released, whatever.
Okay. So you don't want Red Dragon to be the Desperado appetizer.
No,
you want to end with Red Dragon.
I think we'll end with Red Dragon.
Okay.
Because I think it'll be the biggest talker.
I think you're right.
Because we have previously reviewed Silence of the Lambs on Film Fanatics, our old show, and then Hannibal. I don't think there's that much to talk about, which we'll get into. But so as you've convinced me to do starting last month, I didn't look up the Rottens on any of the movies.
Hey, I thought that was your idea.
I didn't look up, well, whosever idea it was a good one.
Preconceived notions and all that.
And the Ebert, we didn't look up the Ebert.
I don't know anything.
So I think, I have some guesses on what
I feel
critics. I know about Silence of the Lambs. Everybody knows that.
That's critically universally loved.
It is one of only 3 movies ever to win the big 5 Oscars.
I feel like I've looked at Rotten stuff in the past at some point. But
there's probably a few haters, but my guess would be in the 90s. Mid-90s.
Silence is pretty high, yeah.
So anyway, as a very brief synopsis, since we all kind of know about the movie.
Hopefully.
Silence of the Lambs, tell us all about it. It's Clarice.
Jodie
Foster.
young FBI agent is basically training. She's trying to, go into the FBI and be a full-on agent, and she has this mentor who wants her to kind of work on this case to catch Buffalo Bill, who's going around and is
skinning the people,
skinning some large women.
This will get maybe a little bit graphic.
It's a little bit more graphic.
Talking about the plots of these, you kind of have to
want to do the Hannibal stuff, but basically going around for mysterious reasons, and to try to get some help, they want to enlist Hannibal the Cannibal Lecter because he himself was a serial killer.
Is it too on the nose though with the name?
All these guys have names like this, and it's also serial killers. They give them names and all the time.
Yeah,
too.
but I mean, his name is Hannibal, and he eats people. Like
The cannibal. That's not the most clever name of all the other ones.
why did Thomas? Is it Thomas Wolfe?
Thomas Harris.
Thomas Harris wrote the book.
Yeah, I guess
why
he's the
did
guy.
he name him Hannibal? Like, I just think that's.
Well, think about it.
It's corny.
To be fair,
That's one of my least favorite parts about the movie. To be honest,
honestly, all the villains have corny names. That's corny nicknames. That's true. But it's almost like a supervillain thing. But that's kind of true to life. I mean, like the Zodiac killer sounds kind of cool, but it's not that clever, really. I mean,
no, but it would be like. Well, I don't know. Nothing rhymes with Zodiac, but it would be,
the Pontiac killer.
Yeah. It would be like his first name was Adirondack, so they're like, oh, he's the Adirondack Zodiac. Like, it's just stupid.
The point is most of you probably know he's helped the FBI before with their boss,
Ray
I believe,
Hopkins.
and some other characters might help with, which is Anthony Hopkins.
The only thread, I think, throughout all three of these movies.
And Barney.
Because we see a lot. Is he in all three? Oh, yeah, that's true. He is in all three. And there's a few people in
some of them.
Red Dragon that are in Silence of the Lambs, but Hannibal, there's very few of the similarity because it takes place a decade later.
Yeah, and of course, different. Yeah, I guess obviously Clarice is in that one.
Right, but a different actress. I mean, in terms of actor and character. Yeah,
you're right. So very few. Just Hannibal, I guess, and Barney.
Yeah,
oddly enough. But yeah, they enlist the help and trying to catch Buffalo Bill, and meanwhile, to kind of play this little game of psychological cat and mouse, he kind of acts like a therapist, sort of for her to kind of find out more about her and sort of help her catch the killer, even though it doesn't always go the way because you've got the guy, Dr. Chilton, the warden there, messing with things.
Yes, he really stinks.
Going at the plan and really just cutting back and forth between that and what's happening with Buffalo Bill and the senator's daughter he kidnaps, and until it culminates and spoilers, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, look, when we do Dan's Big Movie,
I always
this
forget
is all
to go.
spoilers.
Yeah, we do talk about the whole movie.
Well, yeah, because we're really dissecting these movies.
That's
true.
Yeah, so
these are spoiler reviews.
So basically, as Clarice does, spoilers save the day.
I wouldn't even call it review, analysis, really.
Retrospective.
Whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. You're right. We do breakdown. Sure, that's more accurate. Everything.
Yeah.
We go in with Dan's Big Movie, and and of course at the end though, before that, Hannibal Lecter does manage to escape, but in a way does still help Clarice get her man, and she ends up graduating, becoming an FBI agent, and Lecter's on the loose and is going after the guy that made his life miserable in the asylum.
Yes.
And that's where the movie leads off.
And, as you pointed out to me while we watched Red Dragon, that is actually the first in the book series,
yes,
Manhunter.
Because I remember the similarities, and I was thinking, Dan's going to be like, oh man, they're copying. I'm like, remember... And also, that's also one to point
this out.
We're
copying a little.
We'll get into it later, but also technically, Manhunter came out beforehand, so Silence of the Lambs already had something to go off of with this format.
Yes, right. There was a movie Manhunter in the 80s.
That has different cast, but so in a way, though Silence of the Lambs, I think, perfected this thing.
Yes.
They did have a template to go
It's certainly the gold standard.
Sure. But if you want to go for the Red Dragon originality, well, not exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, and that's the thing. It's like we've sort of talked this movie to death when we did Film Fanatics.
So is there anything new?
It appeared so many times in our top fives for different things.
That was the joke.
And then we did actually a review.
Yeah.
Tim gave us a bunch of crap because he was like, just review the damn movie.
Now he's going to be like, oh, I'm talking about it again. Came back.
So number one, this movie is in your top 25 of all time.
I think so. Yeah.
So let's talk first just
why that is
about why that is.
That's a really
in some
oh man, I have to think about it.
That's just general terms, like obviously look, we all know the acting's great, the script is great, the directing by was it Levine?
Oh, I forget his name.
What's his name?
I don't know too many of his movies.
Jonathan Demme.
Yes. Very good.
Very, very good.
Oh man. Wow.
Look, they all won Oscars for their
That's a tough
roles
question. So
and everything.
Try to answer that without sounding generic. I mean, that's got to be hard, but this is a movie that, like a lot of movies, I like to probably watch a little younger than I should have, but I was very...
Yeah, I never watched this until about 8 or 9 years ago.
Yeah, my mom was a bit more liberal about stuff like that.
Yes.
She was.
She was.
But hey, it introduced me to some interesting things early, and I think it shaped my love of movies early on.
Big Seagal fan, for one thing. I
Yes,
certainly didn't watch any of those.
I do enjoy some Steven Seagal. Not quite the same level of Silence of the Lambs.
I wouldn't say.
But and entertaining, I guess,
Yeah.
some of them. But I guess for me, I think it's definitely an element of the direction and just the editing and the cinematography. How the whole movie is put together, structurally, how well it flows. That's like something that, just from a storytelling perspective, there's something about Silence of the Lambs which is just so seamless. It's beautiful. It feels all very congruent. It doesn't feel like
it all
anything-
connects
and
very well.
No scenes wasted, and it's efficient, and it's just, I really think that a psychological thriller, this is kind of the gold standard for that. Certainly there are probably great ones before that, but as you know...
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Hitchcock, a lot of his could be considered psychological thrillers.
Of course, but I feel like this obviously kind of upped it to a little new level, not only with the graphic nature of things, but also kind of just making it very artistically resonant, and kind of there's sort of a beauty, particularly the interplay between the dialogue with Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins.
Yes.
Is obviously amazing, but...
Well, and one thing, speaking of that dialogue real quick...
And I do have I think, one thing that might not sound quite as generic, if I remember, but I'll go ahead.
I was just going to say about the dialogue quickly, because towards the end of Red Dragon we were discussing, and look, some of these will sort of intersect with the other movies,
Sure.
We'll talk about them all.
It's hard not to.
Right. But one of the things we talked about is, how much I really like the Hannibal character.
Oh yeah, that came up a lot.
Some of the reasons are because he is a bit cheeky. He has bits, and I think he's more likable because of that. He's obviously brilliant. But Silence of the Lambs really gets the perfection of the character, because I think Red Dragon, he's not to that level. He's he's more subdued.
He hasn't evolved yet.
Yes, he hasn't evolved, because he just got to jail.
Not used to it.
And then Hannibal...
He's too powerful.
It's just joke after joke. It becomes the Hannibal comedy hour.
So you think Silence of the Lambs got the good balance for his wit?
I think it's the perfect balance. Because everybody thinks of him as the villain, because he's so famously the villain, and he's Hannibal the Cannibal. But he's actually... not the villain of the movie.
That's what's brilliant.
And that's what sort of subverts everything. But continue with what you were saying.
I'm glad you... And like I said, I know... inevitably we're going to just say things that everybody says. But that's because it works, and you're right. I think that the Hannibal Lecter in this film in particular is just a great example, I think, of chemistry, of meeting between a really well-written character, great direction, and really good acting.
And you've read the book, right?
I never read the book.
Oh, okay.
I confess. I
got it.
kind of am interested. I
thought you had.
The books are, I believe, more graphic and darker than the movies are.
Yeah, I'm sure you...
I can't wait to tell you about Hannibal.
Things...
I know a little bit more about the book.
About the TV show?
Oh, the book.
Oh, okay. Okay. When we talk about the movie Hannibal.
Yeah, see, we're bouncing around already. But... I think I'm trying not to bounce over everything. I'm sure we'll talk about more. That is something that we should talk about more, as you pointed out, is kind of when we talk about the different villains, like Buffalo Bill and later on the Tooth Fairy. And I guess sort of Hannibal. Oh, and I guess I have to remember his name, the villain in Hannibal, who's not really a serial killer, but he's quite villainous.
Yeah.
What makes them kind of less likable, more likable than Lecter himself? We were kind of joking about that because they also do their villains really well. For I forget the actor who plays Buffalo Bill, but
I just pulled it up.
He's been in other things, but
Ted Levine. Hold on.
I've seen him in other stuff. He's fine.
Yeah, Ted Levine.
I think he was in the Evolution movie actually.
Oh yeah, you love that.
It was a fun movie.
He was in Monk. That's probably other than this. That's probably what he's best.
I didn't watch much Monk, but I'm sure
I didn't either. But yeah, he was in it, and he's still working. He was in Fallen Kingdom.
Jurassic he was still the bad guy.
Shutter Island, Gangster.
Yeah, he's fine. No, he's cool, but like he did such a good job with this character, kind of like really portraying the creepiness, and also I hate to say it, but that's even to some degree I think Red Dragon there's this vulnerability, and I honestly think a little bit of sympathy. Like he's such a tortured, like he's so demented, and it's why it's brilliant.
I agree, he's demented.
It's complicated, and they're not afraid to shy away from that, and I feel like. Before movies like these, I know Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer I haven't seen, but these kind of dive into like, all right, here's a serial killer, but we're actually going to look at how they are, examine them as people, and get in kind of doing uncomfortable
Well,
places.
that's the psychological part of the psychological thriller.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody could just do a thriller where
bad guy stabs.
bad guys, banging
psycho.
down your door and whatever.
The Norm Bates is a good example, but
yeah, I mean,
but even we don't get too deep into.
No.
Yeah.
But okay, so you mentioned at the top of this, are we going to have anything new to say?
I think we are.
I think we obviously will, but
yeah,
since we're talking about Buffalo Bill right now.
You had a bit about
yes,
this.
So I just recently watched this Netflix documentary called Disclosure, Trans Lives on Screen, and I haven't reviewed it for the channel yet. I'm going to do a whole bit about
Sneak peek here.
a dozen documentaries I've seen recently, but that's one of them.
Okay.
But it basically takes a look at trans people going back to the silent era on film, in television as well.
Okay.
But one of the things they had talked about was Buffalo Bill. And what was interesting to me about that is I actually never considered him to be a trans character.
He's trying to become a woman.
I know, but okay.
That's a big part. They even say in the movie.
It is a big part of the movie. But
so why didn't you think of it?
Here's why. Because at the scene at the end, when he's doing the lipstick and everything, yes. Now he does tuck. We see that.
Yeah.
But because this takes place in the 80s.
Oh yeah.
I always thought, as an 80s music fan, I grew up in the 80s and the glam era. To me, he just looked like he was trying to be a member of Poison, David Bowie, whatever, Motley Crue.
He probably was, though.
And that was probably part of it.
His fantasy, yeah.
And look, the guys in Poison, because they were a glam band, they really dressed up as women.
Huh.
And I never thought of that as any sort of. I mean, it's cross-dressing, but I never thought of it as anything more than just that's how rock and roll is, because David Bowie, whatever.
Not to please hold on to thought, not to deviate too much, but that's an interesting idea about, maybe they get into a little bit with trans representation, about how big the heavy metal scene was, especially in the 80s, like kind of playing around with gender identity.
They
was
didn't,
kind of a big
because
thing.
it was mostly just about movies and television representation.
But that's a part of it,
not just pop culture.
That might be why I did it that, though.
But that's the thing. Like they brought up a lot of things in this movie, Disclosure, that I never thought of as being negative portrayals of trans people, and so that was something that kind of blew my mind, because obviously as I'm watching this documentary, it was like, oh well, this is seeing things from a different perspective. I'm gay, but I'm not trans, so I have certain viewpoints, but I haven't thought about it this particular way.
That's new.
And they brought up many examples, but Buffalo Bill was one of them, and it just hadn't even occurred to me.
So.
And I've seen this movie 3 times.
Well, you didn't think of it as, you thought of him as a character, not focusing on one aspect.
And one of the things they talk about in the documentary is that a lot of trans people on screen have been portrayed as serial killers,
is that so,
like in CSI and other things.
Is that why?
And Norman Bates, actually, they brought that up
dressing
too.
up as mom. Yeah. So I guess it was a negative portrayal, is what they were saying.
Yeah, because Buffalo Bill obviously is
the
villain of the movie, serial killer, what have you.
And I guess back in the day, people would have been more sensitive and thought, mentally ill. Of course, that, and try to lumping it in with that. Mm-hmm. I never thought of it that way. I just thought he was has issues related to that, but he also wanted to be transitioning, and that was just part of his character. I didn't think that he was bad because he was a trans. That never entered my mind as a young person.
And
that's why I was
maybe I was naive. I don't know, but and it's I think it's unfortunate, because I hope that
a lot of people. Well, that's all right.
People don't view this movie as negative towards the trans community, because certainly Jodie Foster, won't be a part of that.
Maybe not,
but
maybe at one point they did. Maybe not so much anymore, because I feel like that certainly wasn't the intention. I think it was just one of those things where he wants to transition into a woman. He wasn't satisfied with the surgery, and
so how do you
at
do
the time,
it?
So he's going to the next level, and that's the negative aspect.
Next level
is his issue, his serial killer
fixation.
Not necessarily he's bad just because that's
right.
Beginning. I never thought of
that. And I never thought of that at all.
But I guess somebody. But the thing is, though, that's why films are important, because if they're reflecting on issues in society, and a lot of people don't research things. They go to a movie, this is what they get. So maybe people thought, oh man, that guy was crazy. All trans people must be like that. Less educated. A lot of people probably weren't formed.
And that's how the stereotype, grows.
So that's probably an element of contribution.
Yeah, which is unfortunate.
But you could argue that any bad person of any particular group is a bad representative. So I mean, you could.
Yes.
I never looked at it that way.
I never did either, but it's just one other perspective about this movie.
If it was one of the main big trans representations, as Buffalo Bill and Norman Bates,
may have been damaging a little bit to some people that we didn't think about back then.
That's true. Thankfully, we're thinking about it more, but that is an interesting point.
Yeah, and something we certainly didn't talk about when we discussed it 5-6 years ago on Filth and Act.
No, and I think there's more awareness of trans issues now than there was 5-6 years ago. It seems like.
Yeah. But he clearly is
complicated.
Complicated. The stuff with keeping the women down in the well.
Oh man.
And
all right, I'll say something new. I forget that actress's name. I don't know her name, but the girl.
Which, by the way, they bring the character back in the Clarice show.
I heard. I saw your thing. I'm like, why? How much they get a milk?
So weird.
I'm like, he's dead. The plot spoilers. The plot line's done.
Brooke Smith is her name.
Well, she's gonna go through her effects trauma and become Clarice's partner.
I know, right?
Really?
Well, listen to this. Brooke Smith, the actress that played her. Guess what other thing she did that was one of her big roles? Bates Motel.
Really?
The Norman Bates show.
Well, she's got a niche. Good for her.
So she's got a type, I guess.
Also, and I mentioned this to you, she's also in a kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. She was a secret agent along Anthony Hopkins in Bad Company.
Oh, that's right. Yes, you love Bad Company.
I do enjoy it. It's I think it's funny. But no, I really think she does a great job playing a vulnerable victim. And I loved her. I loved her reaction to Clarice.
When Clarice says, just sit down, just stay there.
And you were like, don't be mean to her. I'm like, she's been through so much.
I know, I thought that was rude, though. She's like, you effing be, and it's like, all right, I get it, but she is saving you, so just calm down.
I always thought she did a great job, and when she
really does do a good job.
The shot pulls up, and they cut to the young American girl, and she's listening to the music, country.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, oh no, like I just feel.
I really like. Since we're talking about her specifically, I really like her scene with the dog, trying to get the dog,
with the
to
bucket.
sort of
like she's trying
sort of trick the dog to get down there so he can have leverage. The desperation that she really conjured up in that scene was great.
Also, I know we're skipping it a little bit, but
that's okay.
Set design,
we're sort of skipping all around.
Set design, production design on Buffalo Bill's house, the basement, that well with the fingernails and the blood and the dirt and the grime, and she sees that and screams.
God, when she sees the fingernails.
Oh, and I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something. There's some good effects in these movies for gore, but I think the one that gets me the most is one Clarice is going in there and she kind of turns into like the bathroom that's like with the lights flashing and it's like there's some desiccated lump of person in the bathtub. It's all grimy and black. I'm like,
horrible. Some of the visuals, really, and honestly, all three of these.
But I think
movies,
there's something about I think the ones in Silence of the Lambs are probably the most realistic looking because they're not as flashy.
Well, and that's the thing because this was in 91.
Practical.
It could be gross, but they weren't all about like
blood everywhere.
How do we up the gore factor?
But they do a lot with.
They do a lot
decent amount of.
Yeah.
Like remember when they find the first girl and you're like not looking because of the body and the cuts out of the back and then the.
Oh God. I had to turn away from that.
And also, great sound design.
Very good looking.
This is about the fine detail to this that I wouldn't even think about. But in that situation, a lot of things in these movies made me sick. Actually, Hannibal the most did make me cool. But when they pull the moth out of her and there's that exhale of gas or breath, and I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, and you point out the little detail with the lotion under the noses.
Oh yeah.
How bad I'm like but literally that little with the like. I feel like a lot of movies would just go bypass the little detail. That makes it seem more real, more gross, more disturbing.
Yeah, Demi really, I think, went the extra mile in this movie to really have those authentic type of reactions from people and the set design, like you said, not just of Buffalo Bill's house, but of
lighting
Hannibal's cell
and staging of where everyone's positioned is just an.
But even something smaller in terms of like the gross out factor and the practical effects, even something smaller like when the scene where Hannibal breaks free from the cell. I mean, that's some like close quarter stuff.
Well,
you really see some things. I didn't see all of it.
One of the most
couple
effective,
of times I turned away.
The thing I like about that scene is that they don't, believe it or not, they don't do too much. A lot of it's effective because they don't show everything.
Yes.
Bites a guy. There's bits of it. There's some blood. You know what's happening with the sound.
You can hear
with
some
the
crunches
acting, with that
skin or
those
whatever,
effects.
bone.
You pull away. There's makeup. It's good. When they pan out, they don't show you what he does, but whack, blood squirts up, and you know, crack. You know what's happening. And then, of course, they save it. And
the big reveal.
What he does, actually, they show you the whatever that was, manic. Like,
yeah.
Whew, that's the most intense.
That was very intense. Is it a surprise?
That you like it?
No. Well, actually, I was going to say that the Academy liked it so much, but yes, that I like it too.
Honestly, Silence of the Lambs is
this
one
is
of the
not my kind of movie typically,
but it's so well done that it works for you on a lot of levels because of it. They use it well. They don't overdo it. It's always
I think that's what it is
for a goal to serve an emotion. But the Academy liking it,
it's kind of extreme.
Like
now we know Anthony Hopkins. They nominate him every year because he's in something. So they love him. We get that, but
I'm proud of them for giving this movie love, but I don't really understand. It doesn't fit their MO.
And the bit usually is you got to release in October or later to even be contenders.
This was a throwaway horror release,
and this is a February horror release.
People, the studio didn't have a lot of faith in this one. That's the great thing about it. This is a surprise February dump.
That's true. Well, and what's interesting is I would say. And now I don't know every single year.
Manhunter, nobody liked that.
But I would say the next horror movie that got nominated for Best Picture, I don't know every single year exactly, but I think was Get Out, which also released in February.
Social commentary.
All
right, well, the thing about
these are game-changing movies.
They are, but I will point out that with Get Out and with Silence of the Lambs, they are certainly horrific, and you could maybe categorize them as horror, but they are psychological thrillers.
I think there's so much more than that. Yes.
Look, if it was some guy in a mask, if it was Halloween, and it was a very sophisticated slasher movie, it would still be a slasher movie. Probably wouldn't get nominated.
Yeah.
So this was much more than
unless they called it Joker, and then Todd Phillips directed it, and then everybody would love it. But that's a conversation for another time.
We're gonna have to because we've been talking about this. Secretly, he actually doesn't
movie.
like. I don't know.
So stupid.
But look.
But yes, this is a surprising movie because it's not usually something I would gravitate.
Well, why do you
either.
like it so much?
For all the reasons we said, I think the characters go so far beyond the gross out factor or this is a serial killer movie or anything else. I think. The Clary's character specifically
that's my favorite part,
is actually a lot more well defined than we think. Because we think, okay, it's the Hannibal movie, it's the Buffalo Bill movie.
But no,
Clarice is there.
It's the Clarice movie.
Actually,
she's the main character.
Is the Clarice movie. She is the main character.
Oh,
And I think it's why I dislike the TV show so much that just came out because I don't think they really understood, what made this movie so good.
That's interesting. People, that's what it is. You come for Hannibal, you stay a little while for Buffalo Bill, but you really stick with it for Clarice.
Yeah. Well, because she is the
Rock.
Sympathetic.
She's the main
character.
She's the one we get behind. We want to see her succeed. We want to see her okay. And actually, all right. And I don't know. I probably have mentioned this before, but I don't know if I say it enough.
Foster's great.
Foster is great, and I think that's my favorite performance of hers. And I think that the Clarice character and everything about her that motivates her, like one of my favorite shots is, remember intercutting when she goes to see the dead girl, intercuts with her dad's funeral. I think it's beautiful. It's
a great scene.
Very somber, and really, it's in the title, but the conversation with her and Hannibal about like her motivation, like how all these serial
that's a really good scene too. Where we're getting her background,
interesting kind of echoing that the all the serial killers and stuff have their demons they're trying to deal with.
Yeah.
But we all have those to some degree.
Right.
Clarice has her demons with what
The
happened to her
family,
dad, having
yep.
to run away, trying to save the innocent lamb that was killed, and she's trying to save innocence. She's trying to cultivate that as long as she can. That's her whole reason for becoming an
Right.
agent. And like does the bit, you're trying to get all the way to the FBI, not be
Yes.
like he does the bit, and it's just
But
he has her all figured out, but she's not willing to take his nonsense.
See, that's though, and
That's my favorite
the
thing about it.
mental part of this movie. That's why it transcends like anything that I would normally like gravitate towards.
There's more.
The conversations that take place, especially between her and Hannibal. Although there's a couple too with her and the boss too, but
Yeah, I was gonna say he is good.
there's a few of those as well. But so okay, let's talk about Hannibal the person before we get into Hannibal the movie.
Oh yeah, we gotta talk more about Hannibal
Because here I think he is clearly
at his best.
At his best, like we've said, this is the perfect balance of the other movies.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that he is maybe sympathetic is correct, but also
I like to say dynamic.
dynamic.
layered.
He's certainly complicated. He's interesting. All of these adjectives.
I think it's.
But he is a little sympathetic.
Well, I'll go. I want to spoil something for you, but I will in a second.
Okay.
Because I think this will inform. I might have mentioned it, but I want to inform it more. I think just initially, I think it's charming.
He's very charming.
The character's written charming.
Yes.
Hopkins plays him very. It's like he's
which is
sinister,
how he can get away with a lot of these things.
Which is what you like in a great villain is. Not to bring Joker up again, but he's got a certain charm. The actual comic book
Okay.
Joker, like he does bad
Yes.
things, but he's humorous.
Yes.
We can kind of relate to his dark humor a little bit.
the Ledger version, I think, is
The Ledger version
is a very good Joker.
Any good villain, you can
in
kind
that.
of tap into it and
Yeah.
see. Okay, I kind of sort of get what you're saying here. So they have to be human too.
Yeah.
He brings that about. I kind of think it's his wit, his charm, and the sympathetic thing comes from the fact that Clarice is his soft spot. He actually does want her to
Yes.
succeed. He does want her to get,
Yeah.
and he actually cares about her genuinely. And he has little soft spots.
But he's still not just going to give her the answers.
He wants her to work for
He
it.
still
wants her
wants
to
to
become
do
come into her own.
games so she can, yes,
And he likes
so
to
she
play.
can learn.
And that's what's great. He's not just going to hand you the answer. He knows
Yeah.
there's got to be a movie. But,
Yes.
no, but seriously, you're right. He knows that for her
And he
to
started
develop.
that routine in Red Dragon.
They started that with Ed Norton and Red
Yeah.
Dragon. And yeah, he knows that you have to kind of develop, and he wants to see the heroes succeed their own way.
Yeah.
So he's kind of on the good guy's side. He's just got his own agenda. He's got his
He
own
certainly
agenda.
has his own agenda.
But if he likes you, you're in the clear.
Is there aspects of him that are not great, other than like the eating and whatnot of the people?
Eating of people? I mean, he can be a bit of a D.
A
He
little
can be a little
bit.
sassy. He can be a little mean. Like when he's kind of he's a therapist, so
But
he's
he
trying
also knows what
to
cards
put-
he holds.
and he knows what buttons to push with
Yes,
everybody.
he knows what buttons to push.
But like I said, he's got the therapy angle, so he's literally sitting down with Clarice with that
Yeah.
Norton. Hey, let's figure this out. Like he's trying to help, but because he knows so much, he's also a little bit arrogant because he's so
I would say
educated.
very
We always joke
arrogant.
he with his love of art and music and psychology and everything. He would be great friends with the Crane brothers. They could have him for dinner.
He would love a Frasier. He
we
really
saw
would.
in Red Dragon his dinner party. It looked fantastic.
Yes.
I would hang.
Yes, I agree. All right. Should we look at the Rotten and the Ebert, or is there anything else to say?
All right, I'll hold off for Hannibal because
Okay.
I
Yeah, there's more to talk about with
because
the specific character in these other two movies.
Because
I think.
I want to talk more about the Hannibal good and bad
Right.
in that one because I think that's most appropriate.
Right.
I'm trying to think anything else. I do
We've
think
covered so much in the Film Fanatics days too. in
but
this
the
great movie.
boss, I forget that actor's name. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Anthony Held.
He's
he was in Boston Public, my show.
he's good. Scott Glenn.
Oh, no, the boss. I'm sorry, the boss was Scott Glenn.
Scott Glenn.
Yes.
He was in Daredevil recently.
Yes.
He was a stick. Good actor.
Backdraft.
Backdraft. He's a good actor, and I really like the relationship that he and Clarice have.
Yeah.
How he guides her, and also of course can't forget it. We joked about how there's some some young people say there's no strong female characters they could look up to due to recent controversies. And I was thinking, little Clarice Starling is out there jogging, she's fighting, and all the sexist undertones of being surrounded by men in a male-dominated situation, and how there's always the sexual fear from Lecter, from the serial killers, from her bosses, from the from the head of the
people actually throwing bodily fluids at her.
Like she is like always on the edge of assault and trying to kind of scrape up and fight against that on top of everything. I think that Silence of the Lambs is a great feminist movie.
It actually is.
It's a really good one.
Yeah.
I actually really think so because there is all that stuff as a threat subtly and overtly, and Clarice is so strong and is just
that's a great point. Yeah, when
I couldn't forget that
when Gina Carano got fired from The Mandalorian.
But that
one of my friends on Facebook was like,
really?
And I told you this about when I was a kid, there was no female, heroes to look up to on TV, and my example was Xena. I was like, Xena existed in the 90s, come on.
A great example.
But I completely agree.
The point is
this is a very strong
female
woman.
Character, great character in general.
Yeah, and
she's great.
Pretty much right from the start. I mean, she's a little bit nervous.
She's believable. She's not doesn't automatically have all the answers. Right, she's not perfect. She's a person.
But I completely agree. I think this is literally a great example of a strong female.
Before we look at the Rotten, I just want to say it's simple.
And her sex appeal also. Like, Jodie Foster's pretty, but it's not like a sexy... Like, when I think of, like, Charlie's Angels, they're you could look up to Charlie's Angels, but they use their sex to their advantage and this, that, and the other thing.
You're right. I like Jodie Foster. I think she's pretty. I do. But you're right. She doesn't use her feminine
wiles
to get ahead. She does it just by the book with her skills and her sexuality is not a component except the one moment where she she knows that great conversation where her boss was like, "Oh man, got to clear out of here because the woman she was sick." And he's playing into it, and then she has that great line. Well, I get why you did that, but if you're trying to set an example, they're gonna look to you.
That was a great
and I'm like,
line.
And they don't overdo these messages, but I never picked up on that scene that much before.
Yeah,
I thought it was like okay, she's got a great point, and he's like, yeah, you're right.
Well, and
because they're in West Virginia, so it's a small town, older ideas.
Yeah, which makes sense for the time and everything. But I like that she said that.
But that's great.
I do think that yes, her being a female probably influences Hannibal's decision a little bit.
He likes her. He's got a little bit, but it's more of
she never overdoes it to her advantage. Like she always keeps things professional.
Well,
she keeps things
with respect
cut
to Hannibal.
Dry.
I think maybe he finds her attractive, but he is interested in her as a person.
I agree I agree on both of those.
Yes.
I think there's both at play here.
Sure, definitely.
All right,
that's why there's chemistry there.
I agree with the chemistry. All right, no surprise here. So the tomato meter is 96 for the critics, 95% with over 250,000 ratings.
The court's in agreement
for people.
It's a pretty darn good movie.
But let's look at the negatives from the critics and see if they're stupid. Yeah, you just look it up.
You look at the random Rotten. Can you open?
No, I can't open it. Maybe on the stupid app.
It's all gonna be fresh.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, there's only actually 103 reviews because.
Okay.
No, I can't even click on this stupid thing.
You want to get a new phone, you said.
No, this is my new phone. That's the saddest part. I think it's a problem actually with Rotten when you do it on your phone.
Oh.
You can't click stuff or something. I don't know.
I shouldn't look at the reviews on the phone.
I just kind of wanted to look at what the bad people were saying.
Maybe they probably
because I'm curious.
Too violent, or maybe
could be
maybe too sensationalizing of that.
Because I'm sure there's no way Roger Ebert gave this a bad review.
I don't know. He doesn't like the violence and stuff.
Well, that's true, but I mean, I wouldn't call this gratuitous like we're saying. All right, I can't click on anything. This is so stupid. But anyway, there's all the positive things that we already know. Hopkins' performance, devastating. Blah, blah, blah. Jonathan Demme's movie has everything you want in a thriller, stylish, intelligent, audacious, rather than shocking. There's a couple of shocking moments,
I think so.
For sure. But, all right, well, anyway, I'm going to look up the Ebert here.
Okay. I'll see if I can find a bad review on Wikipedia or something.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody didn't like it.
I'm sure Roger loved it, especially when it was such a darling of the Academy here.
True.
But, anyway, here we go. February 18th. Well, what do you think? 4 out of 4.
4 out of 4.
From Ebert, of course.
What?
4 out of 4. Fundamental difference between Silence of the Lambs and the sequel Hannibal. Well, we're about to talk about that.
What about that?
Is that the former is frightening, involving, and disturbing, while the latter is merely disturbing. All right, well, that's fair to say.
Yeah, it looks like on here.
Oh, so he basically, this is a re-review of Silence of the Lambs when Hannibal came out, because this is from 2001.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
I think I looked at his review with
Original
Siskel
review,
about
yeah.
this one, and
Was it not good?
I don't think they loved it as much as maybe he did it later.
Wow. Well, you know what? Sometimes that happens in retrospect, you know.
But
the movie's soundtrack also carries themes all the way through. I will admit that the score here is very good.
The music's really good.
And you mentioned the Tom Petty song. I think that sort of helped elevate that scene as well.
But
all right.
I even it looks like here there was nothing really negative that Wiki pointed out, but it does say criticism from the LGBT community. So
okay, so there you go.
There was some of that early on.
All right.
And I did want to say,
well, that's unfortunate and something that I had not considered, certainly.
That's true. That is true. But that's how you learn.
Yeah.
But I never looked at it that way.
Yeah.
I can honestly say that. I guess good and bad in a number of ways. But I also want to say before we move on, even with the music and setting up the score and what type of character she is, you said that we liked Clarice from the beginning.
Yeah.
That opening shot where she's jogging, she's literally in it.
Just
working towards her goal.
Yep.
And they established that.
Doing her best.
What we need to know about her right away.
Doing her thing.
And Julianne Moore does the running bit later.
Oh, that's right.
They do that.
What a segue.
Get a segue up.
You're right.
See?
All right, well, before we do segue, we must grade this movie.
Oh.
For you, it's got to be an A+.
It's an A+, yeah.
And I think it is for me, too. I mean,
I think...
I don't know what I graded it on Film Fanatics years ago, but I would say it's an A+.
I think
it's one of the greatest films, I think, in my lifetime.
It's one of the greatest movies I've ever seen.
And look, okay, as a quick aside, before we do start Hannibal, Hannibal itself I think will be quick.
I hope so. But I think we might talk about things around Hannibal that might...
Maybe, but I want to talk a lot about Red Dragon, so...
Gotcha.
We made, our top 50 movies recently, and this was our favorites, but we had talked about, that movie is on your list.
Yes.
But we talked about, there's also, we should make a list of what we think are the 50 greatest films ever made, which is more from a technical standpoint than...
We recommend that people that love film, people maybe for technical reasons just...
Right. Like, for example, some of the movies on my personal list... Like the Brady Bunch movie, I wouldn't consider a masterpiece in filmmaking. I got a soft spot for it, blah, blah, blah. But if we're making a top 50, I think, greatest movies ever made, I think this needs to be in the conversation for sure.
I know it'll be in the... It'd probably be
do.
My list, too. And my list has some crossovers because some of my favorites I do love
genuinely
because if I have that, I feel profoundly love with the whole filmmaking process of it, I count that as a love. So, yeah, and Silent Slam is one of those for me, which is weird. A lot of the movies we talked about are just feel good ones you come back to. I love rewatching this movie, even though it does go to dark places.
This is certainly not a feel-good movie.
But it's very entrancing, I guess.
Okay.
Which is perhaps... Yeah. And Hannibal's entrancing in other ways.
So, let's talk about
I'm trying
Hannibal.
to get him to do it. Look, the cover I think says it all.
2001.
I think it says it all. Right?
It says it all that he's a creep.
I like the red eye.
He's doing the red eye, and that's what's that movie? Cillian Murphy
with
McAdams, right?
Rachel McAdams.
Yeah.
Never saw it. That's a guilty pleasure if there.
I've heard people kind of like that in a silly way.
Yeah, that's a drinking game movie.
But all right, but so look, Hannibal, like we've already mentioned about it, takes place 10 years later. Julianne Moore plays Clarice in this one. Hopkins is still Hopkins. Frankie Faison is back as Barney.
Mm-hmm. Loved him.
Yeah, and what's the basic plot conceit of this film?
The plot conceit of this
Hannibal's free.
Hannibal's free. He's been hiding for a while in Italy somewhere.
Yeah.
He's got a job as a professor of art or something.
Makes sense.
He's a cultured individual.
Makes a lot of sense.
And he does have a little correspondence with Clarice, who has moved her way up. She's kind of upper echelon. But people don't really respect her as much because she messed up with a recent case. And she has this connection with Lecter, never caught him, and there's this smarmy a-hole Ray Liotta guy who's clearly giving her a hard time, which I'm like, I thought
forgot about that.
I mean, talk about sexist overtones like this one. You'd think they'd respect her by now, but
this is the complete
It's like she didn't advance
opposite
after this one thing. And basically, we cut to her a little bit, but really, most of it is about Hannibal trying to dodge this because there's a detective, I believe, or I think he works at the college. I wasn't really sure. The other guy.
I thought he was...
He's a socialite.
I thought he worked at the college as a professor, maybe, or
he's
something.
like a socialite, like one of the professors there, and he's kind of suspicious of Hannibal and thinks, and here's about a reward by this villain, and this villain, I'm not going to reveal it later, because it's one of the best things about the movie.
Okay.
And it pressed me too, I know it did. Build up to it. This villain who, there's a flashback, which we'll get into more a little bit about Hannibal's character, where there was this guy who was this wealthy individual that was friends with Lecter. I think one of his patients told him that he basically liked to molest and rape and kill kids or something. And so Lecter didn't like that.
No.
And so...
what a stand-up guy.
He got him drugged up and made him mess up his own face and cripple himself. And so this guy naturally has a little bit of a desire to get back at Lecter.
Yeah, you could say.
And is trying to kind of pin him and play him and... Julianne Moore's now Clarice against each other as a recast, and gets this professor to try and get Lecter, but he tries to do it, and Lecter just eventually destroys him completely before getting other people killed along the way, having some good bits about eating his wife, etc. We'll talk about when he gets another guy killed in the process, which I thought was well done, actually. However, Lecter ends up getting kidnapped, though. Captured by the bad guy, wants revenge, and
that was surprising.
That was actually surprising.
Yeah.
And Clarice actually kind of knows what's going to happen and doesn't think that's right because Lecter's insane, and she kind of has a weird bond with him. He's like a mentor, and and we find out the FBI or Leota has been working to set this up because he's corrupt.
Yeah.
So he's like, I gotta go find him because there's enemies on all sides. Goes, tracks him down, and she and Lecter take care of the bad guy, and then, well. She, that's right. However, she handcuffs herself to Lecter to make sure he won't escape.
That's right, yeah.
And we're bouncing around a bit again, but one of my favorite moments in the movie actually is he has like a cleaver or something, and he's like, well, whatever, Clarice, I've got to get away. And he looks at her, and then cuts down, and they build up to it.
That's like the very end of the movie, isn't it?
I know. All right. We'll come back around, but. That very end, and he actually cut his own arm off to get away, and still left
because
her okay.
he still cares about Clarice.
About her, she's a good person, and that was kind of sweet. I kind of liked it.
Yeah,
you kind of liked it too. I remember.
I liked that part, but
what?
Yeah,
and the movie ends with him. Oh, actually, I missed it. Sorry, I skipped a part. I did skip a part.
What part?
Okay, before Lecter gets away. He actually knocks out Clarice, drugs her, takes her back to her home, or somebody's home, we actually don't know, and they have dinner, and he actually gets really out of the cop.
Right.
And he's...
that's right, he lobotomizes Leota.
And he makes him eat his own brain as revenge because he knows he's been bad to Clarice. And so he gets revenge on Leota before that happens, and there's a catharsis, and movie's basically over.
Why is this movie so bad? Let's talk about that first.
Well, all right.
It's boring.
That's the number one problem. Is that that's right. I actually thought about this a lot in the days because I was hoping we'd talk about it sooner. But the conversation has brought it back.
Okay.
I figured it out. The movie. Okay. There are good ideas in this movie. There are interesting concepts in this movie. There are good shots in this movie. Good atmosphere. There are interesting elements. However, there is an extremely underdeveloped script, and this is the main problem with the movie.
Who directed this one? I just want to look at who directed it. It's that idiot Ridley Scott.
Hey, listen to me.
He is great.
Dan.
Yeah.
This is it.
What?
This is the main issue with the movie. There is not enough story to justify a 2 hour, 2 and 15
It's way
runtime.
too long.
It's like, if you cut this down to a good 90,
way too long.
There's literally scenes of just sitting around listening to tapes from the past, from Silence Lambs.
That was my least favorite part. That was my least favorite part. If you ever wanted us to like Julianne Moore as Clarice, you don't harken back to specific conversations that Jodie Foster's Clarice had with Hannibal.
I know, I get to some degree.
I mean, come on.
But the biggest issue with that, really, even besides that's nitpicking at the end of the day.
I don't know about that.
It is a little bit. But the bigger issue is that, simply put, because there is an underdeveloped script, she doesn't have much to do. The B plot,
No.
she's just sitting around waiting.
I don't
Watch the
honestly
movie.
think this is a Clarice movie at all.
Not well. It is called Hannibal, but
It's called Hannibal, and I get that. But
doesn't do much until the end.
I don't really like Julianne Moore's interpretation.
Well, she's kind of stoic, and I guess she's at a different point where she's a little more jaded about her time in the FBI.
Yeah, and that's fine. But because she's so jaded, and because it's basically a new Clarice, we don't know anything about her.
Not really what she's been through. We don't.
We don't have any idea what the last 10 years have been like for her. And I guess the CBS show will tell us, because that takes place right after Silence of the Lambs.
There you go. So this is the in-betweener. This will make sense for you.
Now I'll have to go back and watch it, I
See?
guess.
There you go.
But I also think Ray Liotta is sleepwalking through this movie. This is by far his worst performance that I've seen.
It's pretty two-dimensional.
It's
goofy.
very bad. But I agree that
There's some
what you're
camp there.
saying, that it's partially the script's problem.
That's the biggest problem.
And maybe not
Scripts-
all his problem.
Short
but
script versus big runtime is where a lot of the issues
Yeah.
start to come up.
Yes.
Really.
And look, Ridley Scott has done some great movies.
There's some good, interesting direction shots and atmosphere.
A little bit.
There's some.
But
Mostly in Italy.
yeah, and listen, how can you screw that up?
Yeah, with all the architecture.
You know,
that's true. Yeah.
Italy's beautiful no matter how you slice it. And speaking of slices, there are some interesting things that Hannibal does here, slicing up the brain.
He does them. He eviscerates the one guy. Did he hang him? He hangs him.
Oh yeah, that was pretty good.
With his entrails out was good.
Ugh, yeah, that was a little extreme.
It was. But I think my favorite was actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when Hannibal is being pursued, because the professor guy is like, oh, get a close up picture or whatever, follow the other guy, and he gets him killed, and he subtly stabs him.
Yes.
And the guy thinks he's like, he managed to avoid, getting his genitals hit, and he says, I think, cut off something like the penis or something, and he doesn't do that, but he gets him like right in an artery, so there's blood just gushing out, and he's just done. And I was like, there's something about the subtlety of that for the character.
You like that.
I thought that kill was quite graceful and well executed. It was a good scene. It
was well shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not saying that Hannibal in this movie became, the Freddy Krueger of Nightmare 5 and on.
He was on his way.
He's just doing the bits.
He's on his way.
But this is like...
If it was a different kind of movie, he could be just...
If there was a Hannibal 2...
If this was Hannibal, if this was just Hannibal 2...
The
revenge.
He's doing...
That'd be great.
Bits in this movie.
That's the best part, though.
No, it's not, though.
It is, though, Dan.
It's not.
It's the best part, and you know it. That was literally...
No.
See,
I actually think the best part was the last 20 minutes where he lobotomizes Leota.
And he gets revenge on the bad guy. Captured.
Yeah, I think...
When stuff happens, right?
And that's the thing.
Stuff happens.
It's like the last
20
minutes of this movie...
Wow, this interesting stuff
pretty
happens.
good. And you're like, well, thank God I hated Ray Liotta's performance in this.
Literally,
please lobotomize him.
The first hour and a half of this movie...
Oh, it's so boring.
There's very little that happens.
Yeah. But some of those murders we just talked about happened sort of in drips and drabs in that first hour and a half.
And that's the thing I want to say that I do bring up is that admittedly, he did do a few too many bits, but for the most part, when Hannibal was doing his Hannibal thing and he was being pursued, there were moments with the combats and the murders that were interesting and they were kind of exciting. You jumped
a little bit.
Times. We got
I jumped
a little
couple
bit.
of times.
So I just wish there was more story in between that.
I agree. I agree. Now listen.
I liked it when he was hamming it up a little. Whatever.
I didn't care for that. I brought up Ridley Scott, and you said, well, there's some good shots here, and that's true.
Got to give the good shots.
However...
Too many good shots.
No, that's not too many. Believe me, there's not too many good shots in this movie.
It's all good shots.
But look, Ridley Scott as director also has a responsibility to bring these characters to life.
I think that's his main...
and he didn't do that.
Yeah.
And I actually think that's his problem in his worst movies. I mean, I think he has some great movies.
Yeah.
The Martian didn't have that problem. But The Counselor certainly did.
I was looking up...
And some others.
Just my thing lately is interviews with directors, and Ridley's came up, and he's definitely a guy who really loves, framing and just getting the thing to look good. It's always been his main interest.
And that's fine.
I think the story has always been a little secondary.
But, right, he needs to actually read the script and be like, what can I do with this to make it pop on the screen rather than show nice architecture?
That's why I think I'm wondering if Julianne Moore got much direction.
Probably not.
Didn't seem
it's pretty easy to tell she didn't. But what's interesting is
Hannibal's just like, I'm doing
This is a year after Gladiator, which, look, I've never seen, but by all accounts, it's a great movie.
I can tell you.
So, like,
Gladiator is
what is going on here?
A fantastic movie.
You know, like...
I'll tell you what I think it is. I think Ridley is doing the classic one for me, one for them. I think this is the studio contract. Make money for them, and I'll do my artsy personal project. I think his heart probably wasn't in this one, and I think there's a lot of movies where the director.
And I think that shows.
And yeah, unfortunately. Now, I think if somebody wants to do a Hannibal movie, they think they care. Of course, obviously, we're just conjecture, but that's probably feeding into it a little bit.
I don't doubt that. Well, let's look. Before we even look at the Rotten, you just said,
some reviews.
Let's go make money for the studio. Let's see what this movie actually made.
Okay.
Like we did with Charlie's Angels back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
So the budget was $87 million.
Nice.
Worldwide box office was $350 million. Well, that's a big hit.
People like Hannibal.
That's a very big hit then, I guess. And this novel wasn't even published until right before.
Yeah, remember
99 was the novel.
Yeah, this one I believe I've heard that this one was rushed into being published to help with the movie.
Oh, here you go. The first paragraph on Wiki. Hannibal had a difficult pre-production
because there wasn't a story completely finished to base it on.
Jonathan Demme and the screenwriter and Foster of Silence of the Lambs all declined to be involved at all.
Because they're like, there's nothing here to work.
Oh, and here you go. Just what we just said. Scott became attached after the success of Gladiator.
Well, this is your contract. Okay, you do Gladiator, we'll give you the money, so you got to do this Hannibal work on.
Wow, we didn't even read that before, and yet it's dripping all over this movie.
We get a sense of how Hollywood works watching movies and whatnot.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just
it speaks
it's
to the movie.
so obvious.
Honestly,
looking at this movie.
You know what this kind of reminds me of?
Tell me.
And I remember
a hot piece of garbage.
That's a little harsh.
No, it's not that bad.
No. Actually, I think it's perfect. It reminds me a lot of Spike Lee's Old Boy.
Oh.
Because that was a classic one for them.
Yes.
With a big name attached to a beloved thing.
Yep.
But just got to kind of do the what I got to do, and
I think that sounds about right.
It's a very good comparison.
And for this one to be the longest one in the series, like you said, they're all like about 2 hours. Silence is like maybe 5 minutes short.
But there's not much.
This is 2 hours 11 minutes, and it's like at least 90, 95 minutes of it. There's just nothing going on.
You could cut this half an hour 45 easily.
Last 20 is so good though.
I do like the
last 20 is so good,
and
that can raise a grade a little bit if an ending's good.
And that's what I'm saying. I like certain things about it a lot.
Yeah.
And I like the villain. I like what happens to the villain.
Yeah.
I like the little interplay with him and I wanted to say Jodie, but with Clarice. I wish too. I actually do wish too.
Yeah.
And
I like Julianne more, but not in this.
And some of the moments with Hannibal doing his thing, there are cool things, but I agree there's not enough.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, I definitely want to talk about Red Dragon. So let's wrap up Hannibal here with the Rotten.
I knew it.
40% on the critics.
It's a mixed bag.
62 on the audience, and again, more than 250,000 ratings from the audience.
Kind of like this movie.
Well, yes, kind of.
It's
62 is slightly positive.
Yeah.
40%. Let's see. I probably can't click on it again, but let's see what the available critic says. Oh, look on this one.
At least we can find some. Oh, okay. Well,
this one shows me everything. All right. Well, do you want to hear the positives?
Let's hear positives and negatives. Let's hear both.
Okay.
Here's some positives.
Scott does justice to the Silence of the Lambs character, Hannibal, and the character Hannibal in general, even without a few key pieces, and despite toning down Harris's novel. 4 out of 5, no way. Here's a 6 out of 10 positive. That's probably more like it.
Okay.
Part of the appeal of the Hannibal Lecter novels and films is the complexity of the principal character. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Who is at once a reprehensible murderer and a moral force for justice. I agree with both of those things.
I almost forgot to tell you something. This might help.
What's that?
Read your Rottens first.
Rottens.
That's not a very good review.
That's a stupid review. Doesn't work as its own individual, self-contained cinematic entity. Oh, I completely agree with that. If you never saw Silence of the Lambs, you'd be
have no
even
idea
more bored.
What's Steven talking
about.
Well,
you might know because they play the clips, but like you wouldn't be invested at all.
You wouldn't come see this.
But if you did,
I guess, if you did, you'd be like,
here you go. Hannibal doesn't seem to be about anything but its own swank decadence.
That's decadent.
Hopkins, with its reedy voice and effete airs. Jesus, Newsweek.
This guy's a little...
You're trying to be... Yeah, this guy's pretentious for news. Well, it's Newsweek. What do you expect? Still quite delicious in the part that Oscar, but 10 years later has become more annoying camp and terrifying.
I do like
That's
little camp,
what we said, campy.
A little camp.
But not in the Silence of the Lambs. Campy is for like...
Look,
You
it's
know.
not Silence of the Lambs. It's a different project.
No, I guess you're right. No tension, no rhythm, and no sense of purpose unless you count helping Faces of Death fans.
There's some
funny.
tension. There's
That's
some
funny.
tension.
All right, anyway.
What the? All right.
No, I agree with some of these.
I agree with some of it too.
Here's a 1 out of 4. There are moments of a good movie buried amongst this over-the-top thriller.
That's true.
But these moments are all too rare. I think
That's true.
1 out of 4 is harsh,
But that's
I
true.
agree with the sentiment.
That's a great sentiment.
I agree with the sentiment.
But
David.
one thing about this movie that I do think is good and does inform the character, which we pick up a little bit in Silence of the Lambs,
Okay.
we get in more in this movie, is that Hannibal does have his own code, which we might see more, and Hannibal really only kills people that he thinks are bad. Bad people.
Yes, I agree.
He generally
and that's
goes
good.
after bad people or people that get in his way.
Yes.
So that's one reason why I think he is a more compelling anti-hero, and we see more of that in Hannibal. That is one thing will say.
I'm very excited to see that evolve
In the show.
as a prequel to all of this.
Yes.
Ebert gave Hannibal 2.5 stars.
Oh, yeah.
Hannibal is a carnival geek show elevated in the direction of art.
That sounds about right.
It never quite gets there, but it tries with every fiber of its craft. I don't think it tries that hard, actually.
I think, well, there's some... it tries to be kind of artsy with the gore.
He said it should have been NC-17 for violence.
Some of the gore is pretty...
Some of the gore is a bit intense. The film lacks the focus and brilliance of Silence of the Lambs for a number of reasons, yes, obviously.
Yeah.
All right, so we need to stop this nonsense. This movie, for me... It's either a C or a C minus. It's
Okay.
not a positive, but I don't think it's as bad. That one out of four, I don't agree with, because I do think the ending is really solid.
There's a really cool
but to have to wade through that long.
Dan, I'll help you out.
What are you gonna give it?
Gary Oldman has Gary Oldman in the makeup. That villain.
Oh yeah.
Come on, don't forget about Gary.
Pretty good.
It was pretty good. He was pretty.
Gary
involved in
Oldman's
that.
always good,
But it's still a factor in the film. I thought he was one of the best parts.
Leota was so bad though. He really was. I mean, all right, C, I guess.
All right. Well, it's okay. It's okay.
Are you giving it a B minus or something?
It's a C plus.
C plus. All right. So not much different.
No, it's not much different because look, I agree with the sentiment, and I kind of bask in that. I think there's some
You like the
artsiness-
camp more than I do.
There's
for
some
sure
there's some
in this.
artsiness. I do agree that the artful stuff with the gore is its own thing. Is actually kind of cool. The effects for that are good.
Yeah.
There was some attention to that. Some of the shots, there was some good atmosphere with the character. And yes,
just-
he has a little bit of camp.
Yeah.
Even in Silence of the Lambs.
I agree.
So we can't pretend we don't like any camp.
No, that's what I mean.
Look,
Silence is the perfect balance.
That's what I'm saying.
I said that.
And I absolutely agree. I'm just saying that this is obviously a more campy film, and it's allowed to be. And I think the camp is fun. At least he's having fun. And you know what? You know what Anthony Hopkins gives us that pretty much nobody else gives us in the movie?
Enjoyment.
Emotion, enjoyment,
Yeah.
performance, the character. And you know what? He made us laugh. He made us invested.
Yes.
And he's the best thing about the movie.
Oh my God. By a clear mile.
So look, if the main title of the movie does an okay job, I give it an okay grade.
Yes. I mean, it was about Hannibal. I'll give you that.
It was about Hannibal. I just wish there was more in between the Hannibal stuff.
Yeah.
Like the B plot with Clarice should just have more going on.
She didn't. To be honest, she didn't need to be in the film.
They could have excised her out completely.
They actually could have excised her completely, and then we wouldn't have the comparison either.
We should have had more interplay between the Lecter and the bad guy.
Yeah.
That should have been the movie.
I know I said I wanted to move on, but it's true. All of these things we're saying are true.
Okay.
I mean, to have Clarice in the movie
That's the worst idea, actually. Wait, worse.
was the worst idea because
It's called Hannibal, for F's sake.
it just didn't give us anything
wanted.
satisfying because then we're just comparing it to Jodie the whole time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you're right.
So, especially playing the clips. Playing
The
exact
voice clips,
conversations.
sound clips, yeah.
So stupid. Alright, so Red Dragon came out just a year later, 2002.
And they're on this.
And this is not, of course, the anniversary, but this is sort of our third in the triple.
Do you understand why I wanted to watch it after the Hannibal double?
Yeah, but you know what?
I'm glad we watched
I'm actually glad we watched all three.
Thank you.
Because when I went to Second and Charles,
I think he should have watched Hannibal too. I think
you
it was
were
worth a
like,
watch.
I hope you can find Red Dragon and not Hannibal because that's the one I really want to watch. So I texted you and was like, well, I found Hannibal.
And remember
so
what I
here we
said?
go.
I was like,
You said,
still should watch
You
Hannibal.
were like, let's do all three anyway. And I am glad we watched all three.
Okay.
Because I don't know if I would have appreciated Red Dragon as much if if I didn't see Hannibal.
That's what I'm saying.
Because that movie is not that good.
Exactly.
But this movie was so there's a third director now involved with this, and it's our friend Brett Ratner.
Okay, Brett.
Friend to us all.
Hey, you know what? The guy can make a movie.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
I won't say all the time, but
is he the
on
X-Men
occasion.
guy? I forget.
X-Men.
Last Stand, right?
Last Stand. Yep.
What else did he do?
did War Dogs. We remember that.
Horrible.
Oh no, he was producer on that. Okay. Oh, here you go. He directed Rush Hour.
Okay, people like Rush Hour.
Oh, Tower Heist. I kind of like that movie. The Family Man. That's actually a good Nick Cage movie. All right, so the guy can direct okay.
Okay.
All right, but anyway, the point is,
A lot of great people worked on this.
some of the people from Silence of the Lambs are here more so than the movie Hannibal.
Barney's
because you've
back
got
again.
Barney, of course. You've got Hannibal by what's his
Anthony.
face, Anthony Hopkins,
Dr.
and
Chilton.
yeah, we've got Anthony Held from Boston Public is back. So we see a few people.
But the cast though.
Well, the cast is great. I guess I'll just read.
I'm sorry.
some
No,
of the
I'm sorry. I'm
names.
interrupting. You go ahead. Go ahead.
Norton, we know that. Rafe Fiennes,
Yeah.
Keitel,
Yeah.
Mary Louise Parker,
Mhm.
Phillips Seymour Hoffman,
To name a few.
to name many. This one had a budget of $78 million, box office worldwide 209. And I'll tell you what, I think probably because Hannibal wasn't that good.
They released that. So
I think
quick.
they were like, wow, another movie about this
Dumb.
guy Hannibal again.
This is
That
too
last
much.
movie was bad.
It was boring, and they didn't give me enough gore, man.
Now we'll look at the Rotten later. I imagine this one got better ratings at least
I think
critically,
so.
but I can see why people. It's kind of like what's that movie Bumblebee? Bumblebee's a good movie.
But you might not have seen it.
Who would know? Because
All the
after
Transformers.
the awful Transformers 4 and 5, you would never go see it.
Exactly. Your first instinct to say another stupid.
Solo
Transformers.
as well. Solo Star Wars.
Oh,
movie.
Star Wars sucks
It's
now.
good, but everybody was
Didn't
pissed
see
about
it.
Star Wars.
Exactly.
I think that probably happened here.
I agree.
Because I think this is certainly a much better movie.
Spoilers,
than
Dan.
Hannibal.
I
Tell
like
me.
this one better than Hannibal.
Well, who doesn't? All right, so let's talk about the plot briefly of Red Dragon.
I'm doing all those synopses today.
You always do.
I do.
That's
I
sort of the bit.
always forget.
Yeah.
No, honestly, this is really easy because it's basically Sounds the
It's
Lambs.
basically
but
Lambs, but prequel.
It's the first time.
The
they did
Norton
it.
Lambs.
It's the first time. It's Manhunter.
Manhunter. Yes. Manhunter was the book and the original film.
And I want to point that out too when I'm done. But basically, this time Ed Norton plays a detective who is
Clarice
actually
type.
a Clarice, the proto Clarice.
Yes.
Okay, it's important. It's not copied.
You're right.
Though they borrow from the movie, but
Many
it's
borrows.
It's an interesting relationship that I think mostly works. But I'm just not to dig that. See, it's like you're ready. I see people like, oh man, this is too much like Silence of the Lambs.
You're
No.
already defending me or defending the movie, and I didn't even say anything.
I'm ready.
All right.
No, but basically, yes, he's the guy that actually caught Hannibal. And there's a
Right.
great opening sequence with that. We'll see how it happens. He almost got killed.
And they mentioned that in Silence of the Lambs.
Yes, they did mention that.
Which is interesting.
That's true. And that was kind of the segue.
Yeah.
And this also kind of sets up the fact that leading into the show we'll be reviewing that Hannibal was a consultant that worked with the FBI to help him catch serial killers and then eventually gets caught. Spoilers for the show.
And I was going to say, what
See-
you think is that the finale of the show will be maybe like the
No.
opening scene of this,
Yeah,
basically.
No, I mean, that would make sense.
In plot-wise.
Maybe it goes a different direction, but basically this is what happens.
Okay.
So spoilers,
Right.
Hannibal does end up in jail
Right.
if you didn't know that.
And I can't remember if the show got canceled
I hope it
or
concluded.
decided to conclude. Because it was only on 3 years.
Okay.
So maybe it actually doesn't conclude. We don't know.
But basically, this is how it resolves. He gets caught by his partner, and of course, he's quit. Edward Norton's quit. He's like, I'm a profiler. I've seen horrible stuff. I'm getting my family away from this. I'm done. But there is a serial killer out there called the Tooth Fairy.
Yeah.
They give him all these colorful names.
All the clever names.
Bad names because of his dentures. He likes to bite people when he marks them.
Yeah.
Whew. But he gets called back by Harvard Keitel. His boss is like, man, what are you doing making boats out of you?
Yeah, he didn't care for
dingus.
it. And
like, you're in a cop movie.
Mary Louise Parker
is the wife.
Said, don't do it, honey.
And of course, he says, end it. And then we're like, we're done. And we're like, done movie.
Yeah, I was like a 10-minute movie.
Okay, great.
Fine.
This is a nice little film.
Norton said yes, of course.
Of course, and basically tracks down.
And we know Norton from many things.
I don't know if you know this.
You're a fan.
I'm a Norton fan. I said,
who doesn't know that?
I don't know.
Many people don't.
I don't talk about it too much. But he's one of the great actors.
Yeah.
He's a great actor.
I mean,
he's really good.
Fight Club.
Fight Club, Primal Fear.
The Hulk.
The Hulk. Yes, I liked his Hulk.
I actually liked his Hulk too.
I heard Painted Veil is a good movie. Moonrise Kingdom.
Oh, that's right. He does a lot of the Anderson movies.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he is great.
Oh,
in Moonrise
American
Kingdom.
History X, one of the best movies.
Oh,
It's a
yeah,
great
it
movie.
is. But I just
It's a rough one.
I always think of the curb stomping, of course. Who
Well,
doesn't?
great scene when he does a slow-mo pan of his chest.
Speaking of turning away, though, I had to do that several times in this movie, which we'll talk about.
More so than Hannibal? Well, I guess more stuff happens that you have to turn away from.
Yeah. I yawned in Hannibal more than
I
turned
had
away.
to keep him wait. Oh, there's something happening now.
But all right, so Norton's back on the case.
Norton's back on the case, and they're tracking down this serial killer who his deal is he goes after families, he tracks them down, and he kills everybody and just mutilates them.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of transforming them so that he can become more powerful and transform into something more than a man.
Yeah.
Red Dragon. And then
Yep, based on this painting.
based on this painting, which is based, I guess, on a William Blake poem. I should know this more. I do like Blake, but I was like English major. I've read some Blake before, but that was cool. I'm going to look that up after. I'm genuinely curious. I do, but it turns out, interestingly, they go to Lecter for help, and they have their interplay.
Yeah.
But it turns out the Tooth Fairy is a big fan of Lecter.
Huge fan.
They have a correspondence, which actually kind of infuriates the Tooth Fairy because they try to use this seedy reporter who is a tabloidist saying things to Philip Seymour Hoffman to kind of try to incite the Tooth Fairy and draw him out, and eventually that leads in him getting terribly killed in a kind of
set on fire,
kind of a very metal way. To me, it was a pretty visceral scene.
Yikes!
But wow, talk about
first he's super glued to the
chair, and then he bites his face off, and then he sets him on fire and rolls him in front of the station.
Bad end for that character.
Whew, that was, and you felt in that Hoffman, man. You know, this character's established as being so slimy, and you hate him, and nobody else cared about him. They set him up because Norton didn't like him.
Care.
He was an a-hole. They clearly established that many times, but the performance with him is like you did not want it to happen.
People don't need to die like that.
He was crying, and I'm like, that was one of the most tense moments.
And look, Phillips Seymour Hoffman obviously was
acting
a great
genius,
actor. Everyone knows
and he
that.
did so much with that little role. I'm like, this guy we established as scummy. We don't want this to happen.
You actually feel for
You're
him.
like, I don't want to be there. Yeah. So I thought that was brilliant. But wow, basically, the chase continues, and Lecter manages to find a clever way to actually get the address of Martin's family. Because he keeps being cheeky about, have me over for dinner
he does
sometime.
like a little code in the newspaper.
Try to like mess with the dial to get to the operator and get some transcripts because he's supposed to be working with the documents and talking to the right person and messing around.
Right.
Which eventually leads back into something else that happens towards the end of the movie. But meanwhile, we learn a little more about the Tooth Fairy. I'd say we get even more, I guess, about him than we do with Buffalo Bill in some ways.
Oh, certainly.
We get a lot more insight into his character.
Because we find out a bit about his childhood.
He was abused by his grandmother and all kinds of issues there, which leads to his insanity and issues and becoming a serial killer, etc. And probably one of the things I remember, and this sparked a great conversation to think about Buffalo Bill and Hannibal, and I think what makes these movies so compelling, generally speaking, at least two of them.
Two of the three.
Two of the three, to some degree the third, I guess. The fact that we get so much of a dynamic look at this character, and okay, my favorite moment.
The character of Hannibal or the villain?
Well, yes, but the Tooth Fairy in this movie for sure.
Okay.
Perhaps more so than all of them in some ways, and this is the crowning moment of the night for me.
Okay.
Was when you were like, meh about Ralph Fiennes.
Well, I was just like, Ray Fiennes is okay.
He's like, is he really that good of an actor? And I'm like,
I know he's so famous, but like, what has he done?
And I was really like, I remember I was like, what? And then I reminded you of all these, and he turns out he's so good. He's like an old man. He just goes into roles.
We talked about English Patient.
Some of your favorite movies.
We talked about English Patient, which I've never seen, and we talked about Schindler, which I'm like, but that's more Liam Neeson's movie, whatever. So I'm like, I don't know. People like Ray Fiennes.
This is my favorite
we'll
one of the
see.
night.
And then you brought up Voldemort, and I was like, oh, wait, he was Voldemort?
Dude.
I was like,
and then it started to click.
I've seen all the Harry Potter movies once, but because of the makeup is so good, I don't even think that's Ray Fiennes. And then James Bond.
Yep,
he was M. And then Quiz Show, which I freaking love that movie. And yeah, he's been in. And then one of the movies I actually thought was his brother, Joseph Fiennes.
Freaking Grand Budapest Hotel.
That's right. You said Grand Budapest. I was like, isn't that Joseph?
I'm like, no.
Turns out he's so good, like Oldman, like you said. that
melds into these
he
characters.
really transforms into these different characters,
And
so much so that I didn't even realize he was doing some of these performances.
I think it was a serious question from you, and we were talking about David Fincher a little bit. Do you think Ray Fiennes is an underrated actor somehow, or is he just have...
No, I actually was thinking maybe he was overrated until we went over all his filmography. Then I was like, oh, okay.
And then I'm watching this movie, and I'm thinking he's given a pretty dynamite performance from my perspective. So,
well, we need to talk about this character.
Well, wait. Before we go,
all right.
I also want to just get a little more out. The interesting thing about him is he's doing all these terrible things.
Yeah.
Killing kids, killing families, killing pets, doing terrible stuff to Hoffman. But he meets this woman who's like the photographer because he might be working with vets somehow, and she loves animals, and she's blind. Can't see his little disfigurement, his cut on his lip, and they have like a bit of romance.
Isn't really
that bad.
That disfiguring.
You know how it is in Hollywood that people are mean. Whatever.
I guess, but I've seen actors and actresses really ugly themselves up for a role.
He's not Quasimodo, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, like when I think of
Elephant Man.
Well, no, I mean, just in the real world. Like, Monster, Charlize Theron in Monster. Like, that was
more makeup.
A dowdied down person. He had a little hair lip. Like,
I personally think, the truth is that was very Hollywood. He's a good-looking guy.
Right.
I'm like, it's nonsense. But
Frankenstein's monster's coming. It's like, come on.
It's a classic Phantom of the Opera where Gerard Butler's got this little thing. Oh, cover your, take that off.
Yes.
No, but it's his character is so insecure about being a piece of crap.
Yeah.
All that stuff. That informs the insecurity. That's,
right, I understand.
That's more what it is. But you're right. They could have done a little.
They could have done a little.
Whatever. I think it looks fine. The tattoo is where they spent that makeup money.
Yes, the tattoo, the entire
back
neck to butt
leg.
Well, that bottom of the legs tattoo
is the painting of
down
the dragon.
The ankles.
Is the red dragon?
Yikes!
Which is a pretty cool reveal. But he has a soft spot for this blind lady, and there's this really interesting plot essentially with this character. He kind of has his own little arc where he is sort of struggling and very conflicted with trying to take feelings for and wants to get out of it and stop doing these bad things and try to fight the dragon. He literally goes to the museum where there's the painting and tries to destroy it, but then he eats it because he can't stop it. He ends up becoming it, and there's this whole thing where
that didn't make any sense to me.
He tries to basically burn down the house because he wants to kill her so that the monster won't get her and do horrible things to her. And there's this brilliant
he wants to kill it.
He's conflicted.
That part didn't make sense.
He's conflicted because he doesn't want to tear her up, but
I understand.
so that he can. And he's trying to fight that part of himself. And there was this great thing where he's got a shooter, says he can't, and then he shoots himself, and it cuts away. We don't see the blood splatters on her, and she somehow makes it out of the burning house.
I don't believe that for a second.
That was a little iffy.
Was stupid.
That was iffy. And
she should not have made it out of that house.
And then Norton does bits about you'll be okay. Your hair looks messy. Thinks he's Hopkins over here.
Yeah,
it's okay.
This veered on the bits too. But it's a much better movie than Hannibal.
Absolutely.
So
we didn't talk about him yet, really.
Yeah,
but basically cuts the end. And everything's fine, but it turns out that's not what he meant. He let her go, but he can't stop being the Red Dragon.
No, he ended up killing somebody else.
And he has to go after Norton, and he killed
and Mary Louise Parker,
the guy and the kid. But Norton gets out of it by going through that same exact line that we heard that the mother said to him in the recording to get him insecure, kind of not want to kill the kid and go after him.
Yeah.
And then in a scene they established where he trains his wife to be a better shot, she takes him out. They take him out together.
Mary Louise Parker is the number one marksman in the freaking world.
She was training for months. Months in the Lancaster.
We don't know that.
We just don't know. That's why they put the scene in there to establish so they could use it later. It's not like you can't. If they not had that scene, you'd be like, oh yeah, where'd she learn how to shoot? That's why they said, okay, you can ask that question.
For 1 minute.
It's fine. She did not. Look, some people are good shots. She's like, oh.
Yeah, what did I say?
Look, she's a weed.
I said, well, she was a good weed dealer.
So I guess. Picked up. She had like so many
I guess
seasons.
You could do things. All right, look, this character, Tooth Fairy.
Yeah. You hated him at first.
I still hate him. You had a lot of sympathy for him.
Well, bad
for the upbringing.
Okay.
The abuse of the upbringing.
I got one for you.
Tell me.
I got two for you, actually.
Okay.
You're like, F you, Joe, how could you like this guy? Wait, but.
Okay.
I'll give you two examples.
Okay.
All right, first one. I know you're thinking I'm excusing what he's doing. I'm not. He's obviously got problems, he's doing terrible things, but he is mentally ill.
Well, clearly.
He's mentally, and he is still there's a part of him that they mention in the movie with Edward Norton. You bring out the good part of him, save some lives. He wants to fight that impulse.
Yeah.
That he's a product of based on his upbringing, what Buffalo Bill, etc. We can talk about the comparison. I think about, I'm sorry, Batman villains. Oftentimes,
here we go again.
I'll go. Two-Face is probably my favorite villain, and he's got the split personality. He does bad things. He kills people, but there's a good part of him. He's conflicted. He's not all mentally with it. I don't know if this is quite the same thing.
Look, I think everyone has a good and a bad part, but
if they're mentally ill, they're clear.
Okay.
It's not entirely. It's hard to say how much of it.
My only Two-Face
Dark Knight
knowledge is the Dark Knight.
Well, then though.
I know. Okay.
But even better one though, Gollum. You like Gollum? It's the exact same thing conversing with him.
Gollum's funny.
He's cute. He's got the big eyes. He murders people. He eats people. He's killed all.
Right. Gollum is also though in a fantasy land.
Yeah.
Gollum doesn't exist.
But he's still a person.
Creatures
based on human. He was a hobbit, which is essentially as a person. So it's based on human things, which is why people like Lord of the Rings.
All right, I understand that, but it is called a fantasy.
So is this.
No, but serial killers are real.
Yeah.
And they do things like this.
Mm-hmm.
Look, here's the thing. You were really, not gung-ho about this guy, but you were like, I feel bad for him a little bit. He had a rough upbringing.
All right.
But when I pointed something out, you were like, oh, yeah, I guess that's bad.
Yeah.
You had forgotten that he murdered the kids.
Yeah, he shoots kids.
And the dog. From the beginning of the movie, he kills the kids and the dog. For 1 second, could not forget that. Yeah. Especially because they showed...
That's a good point.
They didn't show the murder of the kids, but then they showed what he did to the mom and all this stuff.
I don't think Two-Face kills kids, actually.
I don't think Two-Face kills kids either.
Joker does.
Well, Joker...
Sometimes.
Can be funny, we'll see.
That's what I'm saying. That's a good example.
Joker is very complicated, for sure.
That's why... I agree. It's the classic anti-hero thing. We'll compare him to Buffalo Bill or...
Yeah. You definitely softened, I think, on your... stance on the Tooth Fairy once I reminded you that he murders children.
I forgot that he shot those kids in the face, yeah. It's a little much,
I mean, he gets no sympathy from me. I'm sorry he had a bad upbringing. Okay. Many people do and don't turn into serial killers. But that aside, Fiennes, of course, gives a great performance as this character.
And I
don't think we're meant to feel bad for him. I think...
You don't think so?
No.
I thought so. I thought we were clearly meant to see it. All right.
Not in the same way that we are in certain other things. Like, I brought up Breaking Bad.
Okay.
Like, okay.
Oh, yeah.
We had talked about that a little bit when we were watching the movie. Like, that's an example of, I think, the classic anti-hero. I don't think the Tooth Fairy is an anti-hero.
No, because he's not really... he's not the protagonist. We don't...
Right.
We're not meant to want to see him succeed.
I guess that's true. I guess that would be a big difference.
We're not meant to see him succeed.
Right.
But that's the thing.
And I don't want him to succeed. But
no,
look,
we don't.
I get...
He's the villain of the movie.
He's had a lot of trauma in his life.
Look,
I'm
just saying a lot of my favorite villains are sympathetic villains where you can kind of understand where they came from. And I'm sure there's plenty of villains at some point in your movie list.
Maybe if they had uglied him up a little more, I could have gotten behind the trauma more. I don't know.
Well, look, all right.
It's hard to say.
All right. How about this? Because I brought this up too.
Knockout performance.
I agree. He's obviously a villain, but I guess it's the question of the whole evil versus mentally ill thing.
Yeah.
Like if he was,
he's clearly mentally ill.
Dan. You said you have no sympathy for him at all, but if he was maniacally laughing and loving, doing all these things and not trying to stop himself, that wouldn't be different than having a part of him that hates the fact that he's doing it. The answer is no, but
you lost me there with your double negatives. I was confused about how I was supposed to answer.
No. My point is that there's a difference between a villain that is maniacally evil and doesn't care, and someone that, at least on some level, tries.
Look, I think it's nice he fell for that woman.
That's the soft spot. That's what we're meant to have.
Blind Betty, that's fine.
Blind Betty.
But
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's fine. The kids and the dog,
that's the hard part.
It is. I think he would have been more sympathetic if he didn't slaughter entire families. That's all. Kill the parents. It's fine. That's typical.
I like how he draws the line.
Well, because I think that's more typical.
That is more evil.
However,
okay,
yeah, it's certainly more evil, but
more evil action.
But in that regard,
It's a tough question.
It's also more rare to see that in a movie.
True.
To see somebody that does kill kids.
More shocking.
That is certainly true.
So is that the reason?
It doesn't make him more sympathetic to me, though.
So do you
But
find
it could make him,
more?
I don't know, more interesting villain.
So, all right, here's the real question.
You know?
Does that mean you think Buffalo Bill is more sympathetic?
What, because he doesn't kill kids?
Just by default, then.
Well, because he is maniacally laughing about it, though.
But okay, and to go back to Buffalo Bill,
That's what I'm saying. Buffalo Bill is maniacally laughing.
Yes, he's maniacally laughing, but do you remember that scene where he's laughing? It's also kind of like a crying, and there's clearly some scenes where he's
obviously got
he's upset. I remember where they try to hit the commercials about thinking about her as a person, because if he can objectify something, he might not want to kill them.
Yeah.
That there's a compulsion. I'm just saying, I don't know if we should, as horrible as what Buffalo Bill does, I don't know if it's so easy to lump him into evil, because that's too easy and that's too simple for Silence of the Lambs or for the Tooth Fairy to an extent.
These are complex characters.
That's all I'm saying.
These are complex. And
that's all I'm saying.
I will say,
dealing with tough stuff here.
Very tough, and there's a lot of mental health things, obviously,
throughout
these films. Todd Phillips Joker again. What a movie.
Not an excuse, though.
But, no, it's not an excuse. I had a point that I was going to make about things, and I don't know what it was now.
I'm sorry, I messed it up.
But it was some sort of comparison.
I'll tell you, I think it's mostly the performance for me. I think any sympathy I get is that I do feel bad for the guy.
But then he lights Philip Seymour Hoffman on fire and, rolls him down the... Look, I didn't like the Hoffman character, but as we said, we felt bad for him.
I felt... all right, you know what I liked about it? This is great directing, writing,
very good
acting,
directing.
Is that at different moments with this character, I thought he was an awesome villain. I thought he was...
He's a good villain.
I thought he was sad.
Yeah,
I felt
very
bad.
sad.
I felt bad for him a little bit when I heard about his childhood, and I was scared of him. He was a person, and I would not want to be in the room with the guy. Believe me. I was... The most scary moment was when he was Philip Hoffman.
And he was really into Hannibal.
Yes, and that was his idol. That's true.
Idol.
He idolized
Now, if your idol is a serial killer...
You might have some issues.
You might have issues.
I don't disagree.
Buffalo Bill, I don't think, could care less
what
Hannibal was up to. That was the point I was going to make. Buffalo Bill didn't care about Hannibal.
That's right. He had his own thing.
He was doing his own thing.
He just wanted to be a woman.
He just wanted to be a woman, I guess. But this guy really
tries to he's a copycat killer.
He wants to be a copycat killer. I would actually...
It's premeditated? You think it's a little more
I would maybe say his killings might have been more intense than Hannibal.
I know a difference, too. With Buffalo Bill, we don't really see him kill anybody.
That is true.
In the movie.
No, we don't. We see him pick up Catherine.
We see dead bodies.
We don't actually see him kill anybody.
We actually see the Tooth Fairy
Hoffman,
that might be what it is. And I wonder
here.
if you saw him cutting up those ladies, you would maybe lump them closer.
Could be.
That might be part of it.
Could be.
I think... I feel a little more bad for Buffalo Bill in a way because... I don't know. Because
he didn't kill kids.
He didn't kill kids, and he likes animals.
He does like animals. He had a dog.
All right, you know what? They're both about equal because Buffalo Bill, he loved his dog. That was the one thing that was good about him, despite the fact that he was a Nazi. We forgot to mention that.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about the Nazi bit.
Can't leave without the Nazi bit.
Yeah.
It was in 2 shots. He's a Nazi too.
Yeah.
There's some conflicting... Actually, you know what? No, Tooth Fairy's better. He's a Nazi.
The trans community didn't like that either. They made him a Nazi. All right, so we had a break in our... we took up too much space on the camera.
And neither one of us said it wasn't going to be a talker.
We knew it was going to be a talker, but I guess my camera ran out of juice. So we're on my phone now, and we'll wrap it up on this.
But basically...
getting back to it...
I was saying, if by general standards of, I guess, culture, if you're a Nazi, you're a little more evil than anybody else.
Yes, I agree.
So I guess that wins that debate.
Because Nazis obviously kill children.
And they're the epitome of all evil.
So,
which doesn't really make sense for his character, or does it? He's conflicted.
No, it doesn't, actually, but that's all right.
Whatever. But the point
They just were throwing things at the wall.
I think both of them are conflicted, and I want to say that both of them had their soft spot. Buffalo Bill with his dog,
Yeah.
and Tooth Fairy with the woman.
With the girl.
So
that's true.
I like that they had that human element,
a little bit
just to show you that
humanity.
these people were people not doing these
and
things.
of course Hannibal does with several things. But
so we
haven't really talked about Hannibal at all in this movie.
I guess really you said that it wasn't quite as well balanced as obviously Silence of the Lambs.
I think he was too sort of down tempo in this. He didn't do any jokes.
He had a couple. He was doing a whole.
But
he was like, how are you doing?
He was doing the guesses. You know, he wasn't giving full answers or whatever.
He was doing the Khalees thing.
He did kind of jump out a little bit at Ed Norton the one time.
And that one orderly.
That was cheap, though. That one jump scare was so cheap. I didn't care for that. But, and he, popped up in the orderly's face and was like, thank you. That was... I don't know. But,
all right. All right. Honestly, the worst scene in the movie is when that British guy walked down the hall and said, I can't wait to get out of here.
Yeah, that was stupid.
That was bad.
I didn't care for that.
It's like 2 seconds.
But, no, look, I think Hopkins was good in this.
He did a good performance.
I did like the opener.
Oh, yeah.
With the
party
and
the orchestra.
What is it? Orchestra.
And remember, he talked about that in Hannibal.
Yeah.
So I like that they referenced it. So we got to see him kill that guy for messing it up.
Yeah, that was cool.
His party was great. The set piece. And of course him interacting with Norton and then the slow almost kill. That short film was great.
Yes, actually, yes. That whole opening.
You were like, this was good.
And I did like the title credits.
The title, the Elfman
They were
score.
showing all... Oh, yeah, I forgot the Elfman score.
All the case files just cut.
Yep, they were showing all these different newspaper printouts.
Very Fincher 7-esque. This is very simple, but the titles with the red dragon, white and black, and they kept with all the titles for the names.
That was good.
That was a cool thing. I loved the whole opening. Really set the mood. Really well for how dark and intricate and fun the movie was going to be.
It kind of was fun
in a weird way because you were always on the edge of your seat. What's going to happen next?
I wouldn't say Silence of the Lambs was fun, but
entertaining.
Yeah, it's entertaining, but I mean, it's not a fun movie. Hannibal, I think, tried to be too much fun and just missed the mark.
Well, I don't know. I kind of liked it. You know what?
And then I think this was
all right.
This was kind of fun
in a psychological
way.
thriller.
I mean, I had to still look away a couple times.
Well, it's fun.
Certainly still a psychological thriller.
It's fun in the same way that any serial killer movie is fun. You want to like a monster. It's that thrill.
People that like true crime shows,
thrilling,
and would call them fun.
Thrilling.
That's this.
This is a thriller. It's thrilling.
Yes.
It's effective thrilling.
Yeah.
And all right, I got a question for you.
My heart rate went up a couple of times.
I know it did. Me too, actually. Some uncomfortable moments, but we gotta obviously wrap up a little bit, talking more about Hannibal. And since we talked so much about Bill, the Tooth Fairy, I think you brought up a couple times. We did touch on it before. Why we sympathize more with Hannibal than these guys. I think one answer in this movie in particular, but maybe in all of them, I think it is that little bit of charm.
He has a lot of charm.
On the phone, when he gets that lady to get him the number.
To get him there, please, go through your Rolodex, darling.
Please, just do it for me. I'll dance at your wedding if you do.
Yeah, he's very charming. But I think it's more than that.
Of course.
I think it's that we know this character a little bit after 3 movies. We'll find out a lot more in the TV show, which I'm excited about.
Mm-hmm. And he has a moral code.
Yes, he does. Like you mentioned, I think we were talking about maybe the movie Hannibal, but he usually
goes after bad people. Which is always...
Maybe not the guy in the orchestra. That was sort of just personal.
Sometimes it's petty, but for the most part, but on some level, he believes that guy was deserved.
But he does have this moral code.
Usually goes after bad people, and they play that up more in the books. And I forgot to mention something. I did forget to mention something. In the Hannibal novel, do you know how it ends?
No.
Clarice and him run off together.
Oh, that's right. You told me that. So wait, you've read the Hannibal novel?
I haven't.
Or you just know that?
I just know that was common because I think someone I knew was reading it. It might have been my mom actually, and she was like, "This is too dark and disturbing for me."
So how would you feel if that was the ending?
The weird thing is,
I don't think I would be behind it.
They
were
kind of playing it. I actually prefer I think the way they ended it because I like that he cared about her enough to not kill her and not maim her, and
I guess that's true.
That was kind of cool. That was
it wasn't bad, I guess.
That was one of the better Hannibal moments. Better than, I guess, Clarice just running off with the serial killer because he's so alluring. And that's Hannibal. That's the example of what we said, the balance, giving Hannibal too much power with Hannibal in this. that might be a bit much.
I would agree.
He's better as kind of that dynamic. Used better with Red Dragon, though. I do like that, though it's a similar relationship. It's apparent he does feel differently about Edward.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't treat him exactly the same way. He kind of has a little malicious. He's got an issue because he caught him.
Yeah.
Some
well, and let's keep in mind, they previously worked together. They were colleagues.
They know each other intimately.
And, of course,
she's more of a mystery.
She's new.
Yeah.
You know?
She's new.
New and pretty and Jodie Foster-y.
Very much so.
But yeah, he and Ed Norton had that previous relationship.
Which we'll see in the show.
I guess so, yeah. I wonder who plays the Norton type.
I forget. I know Lawrence Fishburne's in it somewhere. I think he's
is that right?
I think he's the Keitel character.
Okay. Well, we know, of course, Mads Mikkelsen plays Hannibal. I'm excited to watch that show because I think we already like this character.
We do.
And I think a lot of that, other than what we've talked about, is Hopkins' performance.
That is
So here's what I'm really hoping. I'm hoping, and Mads Mikkelsen is a very good actor.
You're not going to be thinking of Hopkins.
I'm hoping that it's not
an impression.
An impression.
I don't think it is.
You know?
Also, at some point, obviously no pressure on this, but I would be very curious what you think about Manhunter because there is a bit of a debate among, I guess, the fans of these, which film is better. And
what do you like better?
I wanted you to watch Red Dragon. So I do. Yeah. I think I prefer Red Dragon because of the flair, and I like Hopkins.
Yeah.
But you know something? There's a grittiness and a unique flair and kind of a grounded element to Manhunter.
Okay.
It's a very well shot movie. It doesn't seem like very 80s or anything.
Well, I can tell you.
And I think their portrayal of the villain is also equally creepy but different.
Okay. Well, just knowing who directed it. I don't like to go into things with preconceived notions, but I typically don't like this person's films.
Who's this person?
Michael Mann.
Oh,
so
well, Dan.
I don't know how that might affect it.
I remember you have issues with Michael Mann, but I know you haven't seen some of his best movies. I've been telling you to watch The Insider for years.
That's true.
I actually like Michael Mann a pretty decent amount. I like some of his
movies. The 2 or 3 movies. Well, wait, did he do Collateral? People like that too.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
All right, so I haven't seen the best ones, I guess, but I just see the garbage. I suppose
I would say that's one of his good ones.
Okay. Well, that could very well be.
But there is those. I think they're pretty equally liked. There's a debate about which one's better.
Well, so since we are using the phone now instead of the camcorder. I can't look up specific reviews, but before we started recording the second half here, or the
last 15 minutes or whatever,
we did look up the critics and the Ebert.
I didn't see it.
And so Ebert gave this movie 3.5 stars.
Liked it significantly.
Now I think that's quite high.
It's a little high,
especially if your top is 4 and that's
3.5.
Silence of the Lambs.
That's a very high grade.
I don't think it's right underneath Silence, but the Rotten is 64%, I believe, and in the mid-70s for the audience.
Okay.
If I'm remembering that correctly.
Okay.
And I think that sounds about right.
Sounds about right.
So without looking at specific reviews, I think that probably sounds about right. I think this is almost smack dab in the middle of both of those films.
Sounds about right.
Which is funny because last month when we did the 3 Tarantino-related movies, it was you talked me down to an A. I gave it an A+ immediately, but the 3 movies grades were.
It's only because of that music.
I know the music was bad, but it was A, B, C.
Yeah.
And here I think we're going to see something similar because I think this, if the first one's an A+, Hannibal's a C. I think this lies right in the middle. I think this is a B.
Okay.
I certainly have issues with it, but the acting is very good.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a little long at a little over 2 hours.
Okay.
But for the most part, I think it does the Hannibal character some service. I'm glad that Clarice isn't in it. I think Foster owns the character, and I'm tired of seeing replicas.
Yeah.
I liked Norton's performance, and I liked his sort of back and forth with Keitel.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's pretty good.
I think a B is good. Maybe a B+. I don't know.
Well, I'm pretty much there with you. I really liked it. I think that I just really liked how well it flowed, and the performances were really good. I actually really do think Ralph Fiennes does an excellent job with
Yeah,
Tooth
he
Fairy.
does.
Just
He
playing
really does.
a really scary thing. There's just some really well
I wish
executed
I
stuff.
believed that ending more though, where she got out of the house.
You know what?
And he ended up not killing himself, but someone else that was just there.
Because he shot.
But of course, she wouldn't see because she was blind anyway.
He shot the guy. I thought it was actually shot pretty well. How they
it was
fooled us.
shot well, but I just
he killed that guy that was floating with him before and had his body. I thought it was a good fake out.
It was a good fake out.
No, I thought this was pretty enjoyable. I leave with a B+. I really liked it.
Okay.
That was pretty good.
I kind of figured.
Pretty good.
I think a B+ is fine for this.
Yeah, I was teetering on A-, but there's some silly things like her getting out of the house completely unscathed, and
I didn't like that.
And like I said, there's some little moments here and there that were kind of a little cheesy. Some of the jump scares were silly.
Yeah, the thing where they were looking at the picture of the dolls, that was kind of stupid.
Though I will say, I think Mary Louise Parker can shoot well. They have that scene for a reason.
I guess that's true. Enough Hannibal in this movie for you though? Because that was maybe a slight issue too. I could have done with a little more Hannibal.
I think this movie wasn't actually about Hannibal.
Well, they learned their lesson from the Hannibal movie, I guess.
But the interesting thing about, I don't know if it was used quite as effectively, but the interesting thing about Silence of the Lambs is he doesn't really have that much screen time.
He really doesn't.
It's just so good that it feels like he does.
Yeah.
It's probably about as much as here, maybe even a little more. It's the odd thing.
No, I think he was in Silence a little more than this.
Maybe.
Especially because, like, the escape part
that's true,
towards the end or whatever. But
that's what I'm saying is...
I could have used maybe an extra scene or two.
I kind of almost... But
either way.
I kind of almost wanted like a revenge thing where they fought at the end or something, but that's the truth. But I would have liked more of them together, a build-up before he caught him.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
That might have been like maybe a first third of the movie.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
That might have been cool.
All right, so let's wrap it there.
Wrap it up.
Yikes. Next month is 2 movies only.
Mm-hmm.
We've decided, and it is the anniversary, again, 30th rather, 91 again, just like Silence of the Lambs. One of my all-time favorites. It did not make my top 50. No. We just did the top 50, but Defending Your Life is an excellent movie. So we're going to do that. You've never seen it.
Yeah, I didn't even hear about it until you told me about it.
Yeah, and you will hear of it.
Uh-oh. I like Albert Brooks.
Fantastic. It's such a great movie. And then we decided to pair it with a similar era Streep movie that you've also not seen or heard of.
No.
And I saw in the theaters and did not like, but it's become kind of a cult hit, so I'm wondering 30 years on if I like it better. And it's Death Becomes Her.
That
with Bruce Willis and Goldie Hawn.
The title just sounds like a play. And tonight on Broadway, Death Becomes Her.
It's a comedy.
Okay.
It's a
Bruce Willis
dark comedy. It's like I forget what happens, but some people are dead in it. I don't remember.
I like Goldie.
But I think I really expected it to be, hilarious, and I didn't think it was.
Dark comedy.
But maybe, look, I've got a much more refined palate now than I did when I was 14 or whenever that came out.
Look,
so
you appreciate some of Hannibal's jokes, so I think you'll
so I maybe could appreciate some Willis bits.
Look,
yeah.
The worst dark comedy was Calvary, though. I don't remember laughing once.
Calvary's not a comedy. I don't know why they said that. But anyway, so that's going to be for next month in March. We have a couple already planned. Princess Diaries 1 and 2 we're going to do over the summer. And Whoopi Goldberg we're going to do as well for Jumpin' Jack Flash.
And
and Burglar. But if you guys have any suggestions, we are trying to go on the big anniversary of something, 5-year, 10-year, or more.
So if it's in the month, that's fine.
And we also have a musical coming. It's West Side Story.
West Side Story later this
50th
year.
50th anniversary of West Side Story this year, so we're going to do that 1 month. So there are quite a few we've got planned out, but
we try to do it by month. So we've got months planned out, right?
Yeah.
We've got a few more left, right?
Yeah, we don't have anything for May or June yet.
Okay.
Or I think April. So there's definitely room to grow.
April may have been source code, but that's still kind of up in the air.
Well, I think you and Peter are doing that on your channel.
He forgets all the time. I don't know.
Well, all right, we'll see. We'll see what's happening with that. But either way, if you have any suggestions for big anniversaries of movies for this year, let us know.
Well, you'll be over at my channel for a Time Machine double.
Yes, that's true.
Dan's big movie will make an appearance.
We have a few things on your channel coming up. Time Machine, we're going to watch the original and the new, and then we can announce it here. We're gonna do all of the Planet of the Apes movies. I've never seen any of the originals, only the Franco and forward. And you love this series.
I do.
So
I do, actually.
So we came up with a great name called Go Ape.
He did.
All right. Well, I came up with it.
He did.
And we're going to do that on your channel as well in April. So,
That's right. So we're
many things coming to Dan Reviews It and Merlin the Mighty. Merlin the Mighty channel. What a classic. All right. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see everybody next time. Bye.